Welcome back to the Views and Gravel podcast. I'm Ben. That is Trent. We are back again for another episode, another week of Josh Allen greatness, another week of the Buffalo Bills winning. A lot of things to be excited about. Trent, I want to start by asking how you doing tonight, and how are you feeling?
Well, it's another Sunday where we get to watch the greatest quarterback in football play more great football. I still can't believe that it's a thing we get to do every single week. Um, to put this in perspective, I follow the On This Day in Buffalo Sports History account on Twitter. It's a great account to follow, and they're posting a lot of
Mm-hmm.
late December Bills clips that I remember like distinctly, sitting on my couch with my old man watching these games and look at those highlights and look at what we see now. It
It's
if there's
crazy,
people who are
crazy.
a little younger listen to this, I don't know how what our age demographic is, but if you if you don't remember like Marcel Darius being drafted, watch those clips so you can like fully appreciate Josh Allen because yes, he is by far and away the best quarterback. I mean, let's be honest here, he's the best quarterback we'll ever watch in our life, and he's
I
on
agree.
a streak. He I
Yeah,
don't know if he'll be ever be this high ever again because I mean he
I
is
know.
like gone supernova.
He Supernova is putting it lightly. Like he's just otherworldly. Like he is just absolutely insane, and he's so locked in right now. 362 passing yards, four total touchdowns, 68 rushing yards, and another week of 40 plus points. I mean, this it's not, and I feel like Josh is doing fantastic, and I am never going to take away from what Josh is doing, but this offense in general, man, it's just hitting on all cylinders right at the perfect time. And you always want to say you want to play your best football in December, and that's what the Bills are doing. But Josh has been incredible, and how could you not say this guy? How could you say this guy isn't the MVP after what you watched on Sunday?
I
Like,
mean,
there's no way.
to talk about the MVP stuff, let's take a look at the other
Mhm.
two candidates. Right, Saquon Barkley plays on the Eagles.
Yeah,
Obviously they have Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, pretty good players, a fantastic offensive line. And as we've seen, as I've said many times on this show, running back stats are an offensive line stat. Like if
I
you
agree.
like I, I side tangent there, the people who complain about the Giants getting rid of Saquon, they were gonna suck with or without Saquon and story. Saquon had like 50 yards, not even relevant in the Eagles
Yeah.
win. And I'll be honest, I don't think he's had some pretty damn good stats, but I don't. I is he truly the difference between the Eagles being like 15-2 and like 12-5?
Yeah.
Like is he making that? And Lamar Jackson, if stats are a thing that's supposed to matter for MVP, I'd say he probably has a pretty good case.
Yeah.
But we saw last year that you can have Tyrod Taylor stats as long as you win games, you're fine. So
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah, and it's funny because the narrative's been flipped around this year. You go
Right.
back to last year, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen had
Oh
objectively
yeah.
significantly better stats. And this year, it's Lamar's got the good stats, and I don't want to take away from what Lamar's done. I think he's really matured as a overall passer. I think he's improved in a lot of those areas, and he deserves his respect for sure. But what we're
I
seeing from Josh Allen, I think,
yeah.
is unprecedented. It's unprecedented because
I truly think the only
I
people
was
who don't appreciate it are just the people who want to be correct.
right.
And
And I want to be different. I want to be
they
different.
want their take from 2018 or for this off season or whatever. They want to be correct, and I feel like that's a
Yeah.
general slight in our society is that we hate on stuff so long until we've proven otherwise. Um, if you watch 17 on the football field and you think my quarterback can do that, you're wrong. Because
Hmm.
I helped Josh Allen last year. Probably isn't doing the stuff Josh Allen this year is doing. Like, just
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I said it
depending on
last
how hot
week.
he is. Sorry, depending on how hot he is. Keon Coleman's 45 yards downfield. Josh is rolling to the right, and Josh just goes, no, deeper,
Stupendous. It
deeper.
was it was ridiculous. I honestly think that was probably the best throw he's ever made, and it's crazy to think
I
about
I'd,
because
I'd argue that the next series when he threw it, throwing running to the left, throwing a perfect straight line to the right to James
yeah,
Cook. Might have been
That
better.
was,
Because that's
I mean,
defying physics. That's not how physics work. Objects in
every
motion stay
drive
in motion. He went the opposite
he is,
direction.
I know. And then he was
he's
moving. It's not
he's
like he was like,
like when SB Nation said he's going to defy math if he's good. He's not only defied math, he's defied science.
he has like everything, just physics, literally everything. And that's what's crazy because I went into the numbers a little bit because I was doing some digging. This is per EPA per drop back. This is the 10th most efficient season in NFL history from Josh Allen. And then that's with quarterbacks that are like Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. They couldn't move the way Josh does. They aren't the athlete that Josh Allen is. So it puts so much more stress on defenses to really, because you can't. There's no answer for defending him. We saw what the Lions were trying to do. They were trying to go into this game heavy emphasis on man coverage. They blitz more than any team in the league, and Josh basically said that's not working because what we'll do is we're gonna beat you, off the line. I'm gonna be able to run on you, and you have to respect that. And when they did play zone, they were gonna run with James Cook, and they had a tremendous amount of success with it. And really, you're just seeing greatness. I mean, we're talking about a quarterback right now. It's first in QBR, first in EPA per play. He's got 30 more total touchdowns than any other quarterback since 2021. That's like mind-boggling Madden rookie mode stuff. It's like you don't see this. This stuff doesn't grow on
You
trees.
can't
And when the
Madden.
term generational gets thrown out,
You
it's
can't
like
do this in
this
Madden.
is generational. You can't even do this in Madden, and even if you wanted to, because it's like the guy has really improved in every single facet of his game, and I've mentioned it multiple times for multiple weeks now. Like his poise, his ability to see things pre-snap, his ability to extend plays and find ways to get the most out of nothing. He does it all at high level, and I feel like the biggest weakness or the biggest knock you wanted to say on Josh was his ability to put the ball in harm's way and turn it over. He's got 5 picks. I mean, he's done a tremendous job. He's really, truly right now a lead at everything he's doing. And that's for me what's separating him between everybody else because there's literally nothing wrong with his game. He is doing everything pretty much perfectly, as perfect as you get as a quarterback in terms of an athlete, what you're doing pre-snap. I mean, even Tom Brady, I said this before, his he talked about how he was able to process things and make those smart decisions. You're seeing probably the best quarterback you've ever seen in terms of the whole pie.
And not
So Trent,
only is
what
Josh
did you
doing.
see?
Oh, what I saw was that a defense that was starting to look pretty good got torn to bits by Josh Allen. I
I mean,
mean,
this is a very good defense. Very good.
the 4 minute offense was really like a 7.5 minute offense, and they didn't run their
Mhm.
traditional stuff. They're just throwing. They're like, huh, remember that thing we practiced in August? Let's try that again. Like they were just throwing the toss the they were throwing stuff that hasn't been ran in like 3 years out of the field.
Mhm.
They just they were just throwing whatever the hell they felt like on it. Literally, they come out of the huddle. Josh Allen goes, "Hey, do you want a handoff or a toss, Khalil?" Like we
He knew
we
they were scoring. He knew they were going to score.
yeah we have entered 2020 Josh Allen where he has to ask the ref how many times he got to score. Like
Yeah.
he is. It's I don't. The only thing I do want to say is how about Ty Johnson?
I know. We have to give him his flowers, and that's kind of what I wanted to pivot to
You
because
know,
I
you
wanted to
know
talk
who
about this
didn't
offense.
give him his flowers?
Who?
The New York Jets.
Oh, there it is. Neither
Imagine,
did the Detroit
imagine
Lions either,
being a
by the
Jets
way.
fan, right? You're watching the Jets.
Yeah.
They suck. They're bad. They beat the Jaguars. They ruined the draft pick. You're like, damn. All right. I hope the Lions could beat the stupid Bills. You live in New Jersey. Not great. Season down the
Mhm.
toilet. And what do you see? You see that former third string running back that you guys cut because you thought he sucked, tearing up the number one team in the NFC.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into because, yeah, I mean, he was freaking good. I mean, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about because Joe Brady and his ability to maximize every player out of their position has been really impressive, especially, going back these last 2 weeks. Talk about a game where Amari Cooper didn't have a single target, but his pure, his presence set everybody else up, and it
I mean,
put them
Keon
in,
Coleman had how many
advantageous
targets as well,
position.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
like one or two. Like he really, it was their ability to understand going into this game. Yeah, both their linebackers are coming off the street. One of those linebackers, Josh Allen, was looking at his nameplate in week 2 and wondering who the hell he was because he was just destroying that other team. And he comes back and they do the same thing. They know how to take advantage of, the weaknesses of the defenses, and they do it at such a high level. What they're doing is so impressive. It's not overly creative. It's simple, but it works at such a high level because Joe Brady knows what the weaknesses are, and he basically says, "We're going to go right at him, and I have the best quarterback in the world right now doing it. So there's nothing you can do to stop us."
I mean,
And
honestly, what it feels like, it doesn't feel like an offense like Ben Johnson where they're doing a whole bunch of, razzle dazzle, sprinkle stuff on top,
mm-mm,
or like a McVay or Shanahan offense where, it's a very defined system. This feels
mhm,
very much just like fuck you. We have Josh Allen. We have a strong offensive. We have basically five linemen who emulate Josh Allen. We have literally
mhm.
Josh Allen. Will you? Are you going to stop us? You're not going to stop us. So we're just
Because
going
I
to
mean,
run wherever
you
the hell
think
we feel
about it.
like.
Any way a defense plays this team, zone, man, blitz, they have an answer for it. They have a built-in answer for it. Think about the receivers they got. Keon Coleman, he's a big guy. Matt Collins is a big guy. That's something you got to worry about. Amari Cooper is going to beat you off the line with his release package. Khalil Shakir, he's too quick for you. Josh Allen's going to make the most out of a play. He's going to extend a play, get out of the pocket. Then you have to worry about the running backs getting involved in the receiving. Then you got to worry about Dalton Kincaid and a guy like Dawson Knox who comes in, as makes a big one-handed catch at a big point in the game. It's just really they have. I go back to this because we kind of everybody kind of laughed at it earlier in the season about the whole everybody eats mantra,
I
but
think
it's
I think
it's
we
true.
we, we talked about this
I
a little bit too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did,
I think what did
and
we
it's
say?
really I think it's
Everyone
come to
everyone
life.
eats, but you can't starve or something along those lines.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Turns
But
out
I
all we
mean,
had to do is just the chef had to turn his fucking stove on, and everyone can eat.
yeah, yes, yeah. Or turn the microwave on, or light
Yeah,
the grill, do something. I mean,
yeah,
because it was always
you had to
there.
have the assistant come in and turn on the fucking grill. I guess.
Yeah, the
Holy
sous chef
crap!
had to
The
let them
sous
know
chef
what's
had to
up.
come on in and be like, "Hey."
Yeah. Let's get this thing going. But yeah, I mean, it's true though. Like it's really come to life these last few weeks. I already mentioned Amari Cooper had 0 targets in this game. Last week he had 14. Everybody knows they have a role. They know they're going to get their opportunities. Think about what's going on with the Eagles. AJ Brown had a few weeks there where he wasn't getting any love. This week he comes off a week. It's just a huge game for them. The Bills are similar in the way that they just don't care. They don't care if they need 10 or 12 targets. They know that these guys are good. They're going to get their moments. They're going to have their chances. And it's basically, if it's your game, you got to step up. And everybody has stepped up. And it's a
I
testament to who
truly
they are. And
feel like this team, more or less, is just an embodiment of the quarterback.
embodiment of Josh Allen. And
Because
I
I
feel
mean,
like,
hell, like the Miami game. Normally,
yeah,
that's Josh's stat padding games, and
right.
the first Miami game, he literally just handed the ball off the whole game.
Yeah,
Like I
pretty
think he,
much.
I think he had like 10 completions, maybe.
Something like that. He didn't I didn't even think he broke 200 passing yards.
I mean, my memory's a little foggy. I was,
Mhm.
might have been a few beers in watching that game, but uh, yeah, he didn't do a whole lot of anything that game,
Mhm.
and that's really how this team is. I mean, people want to talk about. I feel like people finally have come around to what this Bills team is, and it's a team built off of basically the power of friendship and vibes. That's what
I
this
know.
team is. Like it's like I've said it. I said it halfway through the year. Like it feels different. Like
It
last
does.
year's team.
Different energy for sure.
Now that you look back at it, felt desperate. Like
Mhm.
clinging on, like old fighter trying to like hit one last uppercut.
It
This
was too business oriented, it felt like. It didn't feel like, they were out there playing football just to
no,
have fun. There was way less of that.
it
Way
felt
less of
it
that.
felt like they had a mission and they were so obsessed with that mission that they could not figure out how to do anything else.
Right.
This team
Yeah.
truly, it feels like they don't care what happens because they're just going to have fun with it anyway.
I know. And that's I mean, you think about all the great champion teams, like it's in their DNA that these guys are tight knit, they're bonded, like they all trust each other. They'd all pretty much take a bullet for each other. And like you said, this team is pretty much an embodiment of Josh Allen. We've said this multiple times now, and I think it goes back to the offensive line. I feel like it's the glue to really everything. I mean, other than Josh Allen, like their ability in pass protection has been phenomenal. They've been able to run the ball, and like you said, like I said, they're not overly creative in what they do. They just basically have the person in front of them beat the shit out of them. Like that is pretty much it. And there's it's straightforward and it's worked for them all year long. And again, another Aaron Cromer moment. Like I got to give this guy his praise because he's done a tremendous job with that group. But it's another week where they just completely dominate the Lions pass rush. I know they don't have Aiden Hutchinson. I understand that, but there's a Darius Smith. You know, they had a Lee McNeil for a part of this game. I know he went down with an injury. There is quality players on that defensive line, and they didn't do anything because this offensive line has pretty much every answer for you. And like I said, everybody's executing at such a high level. The coordinator's putting them in a position to succeed. So it's just the well-roundedness of everything. It's really coming together. And honestly, I wanted to ask you this, Trent. Like, do you think this is the best Bills offense we've seen?
Well,
I
I
know it's
think
tough to put you on the spot
I
like
think
that because
it's I think
there's
it's
been a
the
lot of good
best.
offenses.
I think it's the best we've seen Josh Allen play. I
Yeah,
truly
for sure.
think that the 2021 offense was slightly better, and that's just out of
Mhm.
what the NFL was at the time. Like
Okay.
I think you can't export that exact same offensive scheme to current NFL football. Because as
Mhm.
much as Chris Collinsworth and every announcer wants you to believe that, oh, it was Pat Mahomes throwing deep bombs, it was Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes just basically taking a machine gun to each other that made the rest of the NFL realize we can't do that. We don't have the ability to compete with that. So that's why all the too high shelf happened. And if
Mhm.
anything, like you could see slowly McDermott realizing that that's what we needed to get away from, and they couldn't for a long time until really Joe Brady just came in and said, "What if we just run the football?"
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
it's
I do want to
simplicity.
say I think in front of Josh, this is probably the best offensive line he's had. Like I
Oh, for
think,
sure.
and I
For
think that
sure.
that plays a factor into it because the 2017 team does not make the playoffs if they don't have Eric Wood and Richie Incognito, creating massive holes for Shady McCoy to run
Yeah.
through. Like that's what
Yeah.
carried that team into the playoffs. And then year after year, you had inconsistent offensive line play, and that led to inconsistent quarterback play. Like you can see with the Bears, like yeah, Caleb Williams very much still thinks he's playing San Jose State every week instead of
Yeah.
playing real competition. Um, but his offensive line's not very good.
It's no.
So even when he has a chance to make a real play, he doesn't really have a chance to make a real play. And I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing you're seeing with Josh this year is that the big boys up front are taking care of him. Like
Yeah. And
he
it's
had one
you don't
sack
have that.
today,
Yeah.
and that was
Sack.
I call it if you get intentional grounding because there was nobody in sight, what Josh did, where he was probably hoping that the running back went to that side instead of the side he went to,
Mhm.
that's a sack.
Yeah.
But
It's and it's like a lot of these teams put too much of an emphasis on building the playmakers and finding those guys. Like you could see with the Bills, they grow on trees, dude. Like Khalil Shakir, mid to late round pick.
fifth
Matt
round pick,
Collins, mid to late round pick. Yes, Keon Coleman wasn't really picked, but he's not even the number one guy. It's they traded a third round pick for Amari Cooper. Like you can find these pieces. At the end of the day, the offensive line is the heart of it all because they are what makes it tick. And we've seen Josh Allen play out of his mind before, but it doesn't matter because he had John Feliciano and Ike Bucker blocking for him in the AFC Championship
and
game.
I
Like
don't
you
no
can't.
no disrespect to John Feliciano because when he was in Buffalo, he was pretty damn
He
good.
had
But
his
Ike
moments. He
Buckgetter,
had his moments.
yeah, we can slander him.
Yeah, I mean that's the difference right now with this team. They have to me the I have the confidence because I know this offensive line has shown up and they've shown up for multiple weeks now against really good pass rushes.
They are the
Um,
bedrock of the offense, and if you have a
for sure,
solid bedrock, you can build off of that.
for sure. Speaking of pass rush, I wanted to get into the defense because I saw a lot of people on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, um, really just bashed the hell out of this defense, which I did think was unfair because I thought they had their moments. I thought they had their wins, and it wasn't perfect for sure, but gotta remember this team was down three of their five defensive starters in the secondary. They were banged up going into this game, and this is the number one. I think it's the number one offense the Lions were going into this
The
game.
number
I'm
one
not entirely
offense,
sure.
I don't know if they still are or not, but they'd have a compelling
They
case.
were at the very least they were top 3 offense.
Yeah.
And they're going into this game shorthanded, knowing what you have to cover and Amon-Ra St. Brown, those two-headed monster running backs. This was the worst game the Lions have had all season at running the ball. And I know the game script favored the pass, I get that. But it's not like you were supposed to completely abandon the run because you had your opportunities to run the ball, and when they did, it just didn't work. They had one explosive run the whole game. This was the lowest yards per carry they had all season.
Did they?
Like the Bills, yeah, it was actually kind of impressive when I look back at the numbers. It surprised me because I was like, okay, it felt like the Lions ran the ball better than it showed, but Bills did a good job. And
Because
my biggest fear, Trent.
I was always going to come on here and say that the Lions didn't even run the ball at all. They couldn't run the
No,
ball. It didn't work, and then they had to abandon it because by the time you would, they're already down too many points.
yeah, they're
Like
down too many points,
the
and that's like
Bills,
the game script.
yeah, it went right to the Bills game script, which
Yeah,
we talked about last week, where you were about to say, how afraid you were about the Lions' running attack, with the powerful
hmm
offensive line. The Bills basically came out and said, "You're not running the football. Like we're going to
yeah.
make Jared Goff beat us today."
Yeah, and that was my biggest fear with this team. Like, what were you gonna do against a good rushing attack? Because I mean, I look at every other area of the team. I don't view it as a weakness, maybe other than the special teams. But I look at that interior, and I was just disappointed all season long. But that Chiefs game, they stepped up in a big way. Lions game, they stepped up in a big way. I will say this: if this interior plays like this team won't lose. This team will not lose because, I mean, Ed Oliver finally show some life. 9 pressures in the game. Like he played out of his mind. I'm pretty sure you saw it. He put Frank Ragnow, one of the best centers in the league, on his ass.
Yeah,
Like he played out of his mind. And when this group is, finally cohesive and good together up front, it just creates just a perfect defense. And again, it was with 2 young safeties, Cole Bishop, a rookie, put in that position, Cam Lewis, who had not a good game. Um, he got beat a couple times, and man, and it wasn't pretty. I think they did okay, but I think you're down 3 starters there, and considering that, I felt the D line did a good job, and again, that was my biggest concern. Trent, I'll go to you now. Like, what were you seeing from this defensive line, and does it kind of give you a little bit of faith in this team to kind of fix that a little bit of that weakness going into the postseason? Going forward.
well, I think first and foremost, we're talking about criticism on Twitter. I think we should just do that every week.
Yeah,
I think we should go on
probably.
Twitter and say Ed Oliver sucks. He's bad at football. He's ugly. His horses are whack. I mean,
Yeah. I
like,
mean, bullying works, I guess. I mean,
listen,
if it's
if
if
there's
it's
anything to prove from the Buffalo Bills, bullying works. It doesn't work for the
bullying
Sabres
works,
because they suck. They'll suck forever. The Bills, bullying works.
bullying does work. I
um,
mean, I was the biggest bully of Spencer Brown on that platform, and he turned into an All-Pro level right tackle. It feels like. I mean,
that's
it
because you didn't have
works.
the
It does
vision like
work.
I did. I saw the
I guess
vision.
you did. You did
I
see the
saw the
vision.
light. And you got the cowboy
Trent,
collar on, which automatically makes you weigh about 40 more pounds and adds about 50 aura points. Like if that's a scale in Madden, like I don't know if that's in Madden or not. Like linemen with no cowboy collars, they're about like 65, 75. Cowboy
Is
collar,
the cowboy
instant
collar?
99.
I think it's been a new thing, right? I don't
That
think
was
he's
new.
been wearing it.
Yeah.
I
He
want
hurt
to say
his
it's
neck,
new.
which is not great, but
It
listen,
looked like he hurt it late in the game, but they said it was a head injury. Um, Obviously, I'm hoping for the best because he has been lights out. And again, another just absolute mauler
I
in
mean,
the run game. And
I guess your head's connected to your neck, so I guess that
sure, if
why
that's
not?
what you want to call it. But again, this team, I felt like they, considering the circumstances, did a good job. And we talked about it. The Lions only had 14 points with a buck 50 left in the third quarter. I mean, yes, they scored a lot of points going to finish that game up, but it never felt like they were gonna, really pull it off. I mean, and that's it. The
The
final onside
onside
kick,
was
I was a
about
little
the
nervous.
only time I felt like it because it was
That was the only time I felt
like
like the Lions had
you get the
any
onside.
chance.
I was like, all right, if you get the onside, this game's over.
Yeah,
Like, just get the onside.
that would have really sucked.
Because I
But
mean, I'll be
yeah, the
honest with
Bills.
you. Like at the end, like once they were playing Kareem Jackson and Balen Spector, I was like, oh no,
Yeah,
we're
I
running
think a
out of
lot of people
people.
lost that in sort of the rage they poured out onto to Twitter was Balen Spector, our fourth string linebacker. Kareem Jackson, who was elevated off the practice squad, who's not very good.
Oh,
Um, it was just they weren't playing good, and they were put in a position where the Lions were going to throw the ball at will, no matter what. And
I truly think the
look,
only
it's
reason they didn't go dime was that they were out of DBs. I don't think they had any more DBs
they were
left.
they were.
So like
I
they
don't think they
just
did either.
so they just had to play whoever was
I want to
available.
say the only DB that really didn't play was probably Jamarcus Ingram.
But even then, he
And I
had
think that was
stints
it.
because Tayron had to come out for a few plays. So
Yeah, I know. So
like
like
they were ragged
they were
edge of
really
people.
thin, and it's the Lions were really thin on their
Yeah.
side of the ball,
Well,
but
Lions are just lacking people. Like they're just
they have I saw a stat today. They have 21 players on injured reserve right now.
so. This is a side
It's tough.
question, Ben, because I've had this theory for a while.
You know
Would
what's
you
up?
rather sign people off the street, free agents, guys who played in the NFL, or would you try to go after like CFL or UFL guys? Because I've had a theory. It's a working theory that
Well, I'm gonna
players.
need to hear your theory first because
Because I have a
I feel like
theory
the
that
obvious answer is NFL players.
if you've had a contract to play football, that means you've been playing football. It means you're good enough. Somebody thinks you're good enough to play football. So you've
Mhm,
been in football shape, you've been in a football room, you've been around football guys, you've basically been playing football. Whereas guys off the street weren't even good enough to be offered that contract, or they declined that contract out of ego and pride. So
mhm,
if you're looking for a guy to basically like fill in a backup, a 1 to 3 game stint guy, I think I'd rather have a UFL or a CFL guy because those guys have been playing football and actually were employed to play football. Now, what do you
mhm.
think? Because I feel like the Lions might have to call up the Toronto Argonauts pretty soon and ask about some players.
I would say definitely the UFL. I would say to a lesser extent Canadian football because a lot of it they are Canadian players and they haven't experienced high level football like most Americans have. No offense to Canadians because there is some good Canadian football players, but it's just much it's a harder well to find good players from. The UFL we've seen a lot of players translate well from. I mean, I think the Bills have a couple on their roster right now. Um, but I think it's easier to find those guys because they've played Division One football. They've had the higher experience. So if you're getting a guy from the CFL, you're more or less taking on a rookie. So
Yeah,
that I think that's tougher to say, but I get the UFL point, and it's been a good. I think it's been awesome because it's been sort of like a pipeline system to the NFL because a lot of these guys have earned contracts to the NFL because they've showed that like okay, these guys are good enough to play in the NFL and it's worked out. I mean, look at the Lions kicker, Bates. He's one of the better kickers in the league now because he was able to showcase his talent in that league, and there it's going to continue to happen. It's a good spring league, and I think it'll be good for the league. But no, I like your point because a lot of the street free agents. I mean, Odell Beckham's now one of them, aren't good anymore. It's mostly older players that just really
aren't don't have
don't
it.
have it anymore.
Yeah,
They don't have it anymore. And a lot of fans and you know, like to, oh, I want to sign this guy, I want to sign this guy. It's not as simple, And there's a reason teams don't do it all the time. It's because they're not good, and that remains to be the case. Um, Going forward now, obviously the Bills are 11-3. The one seed still seems like a distant thing, but it's still
I
possible.
think this
Patrick Mahomes is
Saturday
banged
is
up a little
really
bit.
gonna dictate
It's gonna be interesting
if
because I wanted
if
to
they don't if the Chiefs win this Saturday, you might as well start resting starters depending on how the Steelers play. Like
if the Bills do win their next two games, they mathematically clinch the two seed. So they can theoretically rest the starters in week 18 if they don't have the one seed within reach. And yeah,
might
it's
be
going to
a
be interesting because
might be a healthy load of Mr. Trubisky in Week 18.
yes, and these are really bad football teams that we're going to be going up against very soon here. Jets, obviously, who we very much love on this podcast,
Shout out to
and the
the
Patriots.
Jets, man. We
They're
if it
still
wasn't
sticking through
if it
it.
wasn't for the Jets, we wouldn't have a
This
baseline for
podcast would
misery.
not be born. Yeah,
No, yeah,
and it's not games where you can just fall asleep behind the wheel. You got to keep, and I just feel like you got to keep the pedal to the metal right now. Got to keep this momentum building. You got to steamroll into the playoffs because I feel like if you're steamrolling into the playoffs, you're going to have that ultra high confidence. And yes, it can be knocked off a little bit, but go into the playoffs, feel good about yourself. We've seen this team kind of go into the postseason deflated. Think about the DeMar Hamlin incident, really shook this team to its core. They
Although
weren't
in
playing good
fairness, a
football.
player dying, I think is
Yes,
I don't
I
know if you
understand that.
could
It's
get
just
much lower on the self-esteem
on the
total
yeah,
than
yeah,
I think he might be dead.
yeah.
I
But
I don't
you
think it's
know,
lower than that.
my point stands. Like, you want to have that confidence at a high point, and you want to be able to go in the playoffs feeling really good about yourselves and beating your division points. I mean, if the Bills win the next 3 games, they will sweep the AFC East, a division they were no longer the odds-on favorite to win in preseason,
Yeah,
which is crazy to
who
think
was
about.
favored to win that division?
The New York Jets, who happen to have only, I
Wow.
believe, 3 or 4 wins now.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's great.
Amazing.
They snuck by Mac Jones and the Jags this last week, so should be exciting. I mean, I always love divisional games. They got Drake May this week, who I think has had his moments, but this is a really bad Patriots team. They're playing for basically nothing. You need to come out and just basically kill that team. There should be no other excuse. But we've seen this team do it in the past. We've seen them lose to really bad football teams, the winless Jaguars they've lost to. There's been some
Now,
moments.
Ben,
But
lem-
Trent, I wanted to ask you, what do they need to do to not fall asleep behind the wheel and kind of just take care of business the rest of the way here?
um, pretty much the same thing they've been doing for the last
Hmm.
like 3 months. Like pretty much since the Monday Night Jets game, or really, pretty much since that Colts game. Like after that Colts game, things started rolling good, and they started playing more quarters of football. Like the
Hmm.
biggest thing I remember talking about here is
Total
that
effort.
they don't play 4 quarters of football. Like the last 3 or 4 weeks, or 5 weeks because they had a bye week. They've been playing 4 quarters of football, and
For sure.
that's probably just the biggest thing is that come out hot, come out, you know, just come out like the Buffalo Bills we've been seeing since Josh Allen became a married man. Like just
Hmm.
keep like I it's not like oh you gotta do no like
I
you literally faced two of the toughest opponents you could face on the road, including
Yeah,
one trip out in West Coast and one trip in a rabid crowd in Detroit, and now you're at home against
yeah,
the Patriots. Just basically just conduct business as usual. Don't.
yeah.
Although if you do want to try the trick ass plays in the third quarter, make sure you're winning like enough that if they
Let's
intercept it, it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. Um, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think the fast starts have been very important to this run. The Bills have been able to kind of come out the gate swinging, throwing the punches, throwing the first punch to the teams they've been facing, and really setting the tone for each game. Because when they come out a game flat and like lackadaisical, they kind of just
Keeps teams in the
they
game
don't
a lot
play their
longer
best
than they
ball.
should.
Yeah, like think to the Ravens game, the Texas game, they kind of came out flat. They weren't playing with a ton of energy. They got to just come out swinging, and that's really the mo of this team, and it's going back to that Josh Allen embodiment. Just punch them in the face, play crazy, play free, and you will be playing your best football. That is the best version of yourselves, and they got to stick to that. Like you said, it's important to stick to what you've been doing, and these players all know that this is just another game. We're gonna take it 1 week at a time. And they know the end goal. They regurgitate it to the media many times, but this is a reality. I think, I feel like I keep doing this, but I just feel like this feels like the team that they can get this done. It feels like it. They got to beat Kansas City, which is the big one, but it feels like this team has the people in the building, the people in the room, the confidence to
Ironically, it
finally.
feels like the bigger hurdle is going to be whoever they face in the second round. Because like
Yeah,
I feel like the utmost confidence this team can go in Arrowhead and beat them. Like,
yeah.
truly, I was even telling
So
my dad this. I was like, I wish Kansas City played exciting like they used to, because at least if they're going to win in these nonsensical ways, be fun to watch. But in
yeah,
many senses, they are the 2022 Bills that went 13-3. Obviously, DeMar Hamlin's in it, but even before
hmm,
then, like every game felt like a struggle to win the football game.
yeah,
And that's what the Chiefs feel like. Like they are winning, but it's like every game is hard to watch.
yeah. It's like a slow, painful death,
Yeah,
and
that luck will run out.
it eventually it should you'd hope. Um, but right now the Bills, the percentage wise, the most likely first round opponent is going to be the Broncos, which I feel very confident about. And then you'd be playing either the Steelers if they beat the Ravens. So let's say if the Steelers beat the Ravens, you have the Broncos and the Steelers in rounds one. That you can ask for a better scenario,
Yeah,
or you'd be facing the Texans or the Ravens. So
or the Chargers.
you know,
Chargers could beat the
or
Texans.
Chargers. But if the Chargers beat the Texans, they'd more likely be playing the Chiefs because they're the sixth seed or the seventh seed. So
Oh, that's right.
yeah, so it'd be tough, but it's possible if they get the sixth seed, but seventh seed wouldn't be a possibility.
Yeah, that's the thing with like
I'm
Pittsburgh. I'm not
yeah,
too
I'm not
intimidated by Pittsburgh
that,
either.
that that I'm not intimidated by him either. There's really I'm even Houston, like with the way the offensive line's been playing, really the landscape of the AFC right now is pretty much built around it. It favors us basically. It sets us up. You would hope to have the easiest path to the Super Bowl, and this team's capable of doing it. And I think you go back to the wins they've had. You look at the resume they've built. They've beaten the Chiefs. They've beaten the Lions, the two top seeds in their conferences respectively. Like if anything, that tells you this team's capable of doing it, and they have the potential. So it's really just going, taking it game by game. You know what you are, and you know how good you are. You know they're talented enough. They've proven that, and it's gonna be fun. It should be an exciting stretch here, and as we kind of pull out some podcast episodes, it's gonna be a fun next few months. So yeah, anything else you want to add?
Yes, I'm tired of people asking for the red helmets.
Are you?
The red helmets are not good.
You don't like the red helmets?
No, no. To me,
What about red helmets with the blue the like the throwback jerseys? No.
no, because like to me, you kind of swaggerjack the Giants and added a red helmet to it, which really the only reason they have a red helmet was because Joe Ferguson in his last season in Buffalo could not see the defense anymore. So they just figured he could see a red helmet, so they just figured throw it to the grayish hue that looks like your guy. Like the white helmet, like look at the picture of Josh Allen diving into the end zone with the snow and tell me,
Hmm.
oh, we could do better than that. No, you're not going to do better than that. Knock it off. Stop it.
Yeah.
Like the goat heads
Yeah.
worked because they were good in them and they looked cool. The red helmets looked okay and they sucked outside of the 90s. Like once the 90s ended, that was it. It was over.
Hmm. I will say I do miss the standing buffalo helmets. Those
Yes,
were probably my favorite
those
helmets
should
out of
come
all of
back.
them.
I'd much
I
rather
like
have
those.
those. Bring
They
those
at the
back.
very least should have a third uniform combination. I'd like the red jerseys, but I'm not like a huge fan of them. Like
I do
they're all right.
I do have to say wearing the Patriots uniform against the Patriots is a all-time troll
Oh, that's
job.
great.
That's
It
that
is.
is like you could have done that against the Jets. There's no reason
Mhm.
to do it this week. There's no
Yeah.
reason you could have done it this week
After
other
all
than
those
just be
years
like,
of
you know what?
suffering and torture, like hell yeah, man. Like it should be like an every week thing. Trolling the Patriots. But yeah, that pretty much covers it from us. It was another fun one and short one, but again, the Bills just keep rolling through here, and they got three
It's a
weeks
short
left in
one
the
because we
regular
don't have
season.
anything to bitch about.
I know, right?
Like
There's nothing to bitch about. It's
like we
it's great.
if you
I
want
mean, if we were a Sabres
we can't
podcast, it'd
glaze
probably
them
be 3 hours
anymore. You
long.
want more glaze and go to Paulus. Like I mean,
Right,
we're not
right.
glazers over here.
Yeah. Like I said, if it would be a Sabres podcast, we'd probably be here until 6 in the morning. So
I think it was a Sabres podcast. We'd announced to the whole world we're closed for business. Um,
yes,
I turned off the Sabres game after the second 5-on-3 because I decided that was enough of that. So
yeah,
and make sure you send Ben plenty of fan mail so that we answer
yeah.
that
Of
next week.
course, we do plan on bringing on more guests
Because
in the
guess
future
what
here.
next week is?
Oh
Jets
boy.
week.
Oh yeah. Jets week. That should be a fun one. That
That
should
will
be a
be a
fun one.
long
I'm gonna see if
episode.
I can get in some contact with some Jets fans for you too. So we can bring the spice at least for Trent so he can kinda get what he needs to get out of his system because we all know it's been boiling up for the better part of a year now. So yeah, again, thanks for everybody tuning in. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find us for your visual and audio viewing pleasure. And thanks for tuning in. Trent, you have a good night. Everybody else have a good night and go Bills.
Go Bills.